Hey everyone, I'm Caesar and I'm back with another video. And today I have decided that I want to talk about all the things I don't regret doing as a Jehovah's Witness. We all know that being a Jehovah's Witness, there are certain things that by default have already been decided for you. So when it comes to things where you need to make a choice, the choice has already been made for you. Are you going to attend this event? Are you not? No, you as a Jehovah's Witness, you are not. Things like that. Are you going to do this or do that as a Jehovah's Witness? You cannot. So many things in this religion by default have already been decided for you. So there's no two way about it. But there are certain things which, I just went against um, their principles or their rules, whatever. And to this day, looking back, I don't regret because early on, I had decided that I would rather fail doing something knowing that it was completely my decision rather than fail at something knowing that I was kind of manipulated into choosing that it wasn't completely me. I mean, there were other things where I had to relent and choose the way. Otherwise, I guess it would have ended badly. But I guess a lot of the things that you guys are going to hear now are things that I decided came out later. And I guess on a scale of, it getting you this fellowship wasn't up there. But there are a few here which I feel like they could potentially have, you know, had it been known. It's going to be known now, but so I don't know how it's going to go down. But anyway, let's get right into it. So number one, I wrote going to my matric farewell. So all South Africans will know what a matric farewell is. And for those who don't, a matric farewell basically is like a prom. When you are in grade 12 or doing your final year in high school, there's this big dance that we all go to. You have a partner. Luckily, at the time, my cousin was my partner because we were in the same school, and our school didn't allow us to have partners from outside. So if you were in grade 12, you could choose a partner from grade 11 if there wasn't a partner for you in grade 12, or you could go by yourself. But we weren't allowed to have partners or have people come with us who were not in our school. And yes, I decided to go to my matric farewell, and there was no two ways about it. And I'm always glad that my mom wasn't one of those strict JW parents, but she wasn't even baptized at the time, where she was actually the one encouraging me and supporting me to get everything done, because of course you need money, you need a lot of money to make it happen. So my mom really supported me with everything, and I ended up going to my matric farewell. And unfortunately, it was one of those things in the congregation you had to keep it hush. You couldn't tell nobody, and I wasn't intending on telling anybody because I knew that would have been met with a lot of criticism. Because I remember once upon a time being at an assembly, and then there was this girl who was like giving her experience about how she didn't go to her matric farewell when there was so much pressure like put on her to go to the matric farewell. So her not going to the matric farewell was almost as if she was like taking a stance for Jehovah. Back then, I wasn't even in matric yet. I think I was probably in grade 10 or something. But deep down in my heart, I'm like, girl, I'm going to my matric farewell. Your performance scored you a place on the experiences, blah, 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 there on the podium. But I am not interested in telling an experience of how I missed my matric farewell. It doesn't make sense not going to an event with people you've spent the whole. In fact, a lot of these matriculants are not even people that I spent a year with. I spent all my whole high school career, which spans about maybe 5 years, you spent with these people. What difference is one night going to make with these people? Tell me now. One night. What difference is it going to make? And besides, I really wanted to have these memories with these people, and I didn't want to have it be 20 years down the line, looking back, regretting not having attended my matric farewell. And to this day, I do not regret attending my matric farewell. And yes, when people did find out, I was kind of sent on a guilt trip about it, but Jonga, I don't regret. It was my decision. Number two, going to university. Now, for this one, for all the talk that I did about going to the full-time ministry, wanting to be a pioneer, and later on really considering it, because I considered my background, my circumstances where I came from, just going into the full-time service and just living that hand-to-mouth life was not for me, or getting a part-time job was just not for me. I wasn't like aiming like high, being the CEO of a company, no. Now, Kona, I also feel like had I been at liberty, like had I known what I know now, I think I would have made a better decision in terms career-wise, I would have made a better decision. Going to university, because even when I went to university at the time, I was also just looking at what is the shortest course I can possibly take that will allow me to get my qualification and be out of here and working. And again, like having this organization be the center part of my life. Even though I went to university, I kind of went into university with that in mind. Because again, I know this is kind of like going off the rails, but in high school, I did physics and maths. So physics and math is like those subjects that open a lot of doors for you. One of the things that I thought about doing, having those subjects, was becoming a doctor. I decided against that because I wasn't really passionate about it. And then there was being a dentist. And then when I looked at how long you'd be in university doing that, I think it was like 7 years. I was like, oh no, it's too long. So then I had to like find an alternative, and I finally kind of settled with psychology at the time. But yeah, guys, I don't want to dwell too much on that. There's a lot of regret in terms of what I could have done, the doors that I had available to me, and what I eventually chose. But I guess I am where I am because of the choices that I've made, and I am happy where I'm here. But I always sometimes do wonder where I could have been had I, gone ahead and made decisions such as these with an open heart. Because I feel like my heart wasn't entirely there. But yeah, we made that decision. We went to university, and you know what? I want to tell this story. When I was in one of my classes, I think it was in a sociology class, in my first year, I remember the lecturer asking us, like, why do you got what is a university intended on teaching you? Like, why did you come to university? Of course, a lot of us are like, yo, to get our qualification, girl, so that we can graduate and and get a job and earn good money. But then she explained to us that university primarily teaches you three things. Number one, it's to teach you to be a critical thinker, not to accept things at face value. You got to question everything. And as a result of questioning stuff, it prompts you to do research. And that's number two, it prompts you to do research and consider different perspectives. So when you do eventually kind of, think about it, and you consider the research and you come to a conclusion, you are coming to a very informed conclusion. And the third thing that university is intended on teaching you is how to become an academic writer. So yeah, becoming a critical thinker, doing your research, and writing about whatever it is that you're learning. And as a Jehovah's Witness, I can see why that can be a problem, because in the organization, you're not allowed to do research from, you're not allowed to consult sources, external sources. You're only allowed to consult, the resources that they provide you with. Whereas at university, you are encouraged to consult as many resources independent of each other as possible to help you to come to a particular conclusion, and also being a critical thinker. Critical thinking means questioning every single thing and not just accepting things at face value. And I'm very sad to think about, even going through university, I didn't really develop my critical thinking skills on the level that I should have. But I'm glad for the experience, because in hindsight now, when I think about a lot of things, they do make sense, and I appreciate having had that experience. That's number two. Number three is attending my Indian friend's wedding. This friend of mine happened to be, she wasn't even a Jehovah's Witness, she was Hindu. And I had no idea what Hindu weddings entailed until I actually attended her wedding. And there was a little bit of a conflict with regards to attending her wedding, because like I kind of knew that we as Jehovah's Witnesses are not really allowed to participate, not just participate, but we're not really allowed to have friends that are not Jehovah's Witnesses. So attending such a pivotal event in this friend's life would kind of prove that my friendship with her is not uh, it's like you have to draw a line between where your friendship with someone who's not a witness ends. So me being at her wedding would just manifest that no, we actually have a stronger bond here than what is actually allowed by this religion, considering she's not part of it. So even going to the wedding and participating in certain rituals, certain things that they did there was a little bit of a conflict at the time. Yeah, there was a little bit of a conflict at the time. But looking back, I am so glad that I went. And I also remember I would rather go there and have it be my decision than 10 years later realizing that, man, you know what, I should have just gone to my friend's wedding. I went to my friend's wedding. I participated. It was such a great event. Lovely people, beautiful person. She's a beautiful person. Her family is a beautiful person. And I feel like her family is my family. And I do not regret going to her wedding at all. It was a beautiful Hindu wedding, very spiritual, from beginning to end. And it was really, really nice to observe how they do things. And also what I appreciate about her is how rooted in her faith she is. And I love that. I love that about many people who are rooted in their faiths, that devotion, that they give to it. It's not for me to judge. It's not for me to judge. It's people with their relationships with their God. And for me, that's a beautiful thing. I'm not going to judge. Not for me to judge at all. So that's one thing. Number four, participating and not being a spectator at my grandfather's funeral. I remember being at the funeral, and since my grandfather wasn't a witness, they had the pastors and everything, and and everybody was there. And I remember the funeral was in the Eastern Cape, so they had a tent outside the house. So in the tent, funny enough, my mom, my aunt, my mom's sister, and my mom were like witnesses, the baptized witness, and of course my aunt's husband, he's an elder. They wouldn't go into the tent because people were singing gospel songs and they were praising God and they were singing. So they refused to go into the tent. I remember at one point my mom coming to the tent because I was sitting there and just like, oh, you need to get out of here, like kind of like forcing me or telling me. And I'm like, girl, no, you cannot be, forcing me or manipulating me into leaving here. It's my decision to want to be here. And you know what? Instead of being sad at that funeral, I was incredibly, incredibly happy, because that funeral was such a beautiful celebration of my grandfather's life, because many different people that he had influenced, had known, had the opportunity to come to the front and kind of like give testimony of how they knew him and how he kind of influenced their lives. And many people had so many amazing things to say about him, which many of them I know to be true. And it was that day, I always knew my grandfather was a great person, but it was that day where I realized that my grandfather had touched not just a few people, but so many people, and many people remember him for the great person that he was. And my grandfather truly was a great person. I mean, all his grandkids, all his children will tell you that my grandfather was a truly, truly remarkable man, and I miss him every day. And there are times at which I always remember my grandfather was like anti-Jehovah's Witnesses because, you know, he would look at the literature, didn't understand why in most cases, like the pictures were always like white people, how the angels are always white people. And he was used to say that this religion is a white man's religion. So he was so anti the religion. But at the core of it, he was still a good person. He was really, really a good person. He was a big critic of the religion, but he was a good person. He truly was. Number 5, I wrote choosing to work overseas. So twice I've had the opportunity to go work in different countries. The very first time I actually went, it was to America, and now I currently am in China. Before I had embarked on this whole journey of wanting to work overseas, I remember when I was doing my third year, I think there was this Jade up guy, Jehovah's Witness guy, that I was in a very serious relationship with. And I remember, and he was at university with me, which is where I met him. As we were completing our third year, there was that big question of, you know, what's next for us? Now we're getting our degrees, what's next? Especially with me, my major being psychology and all of that, I always wondered, you know, what's the next step now that I'm going to get my degree? And we all know having an undergraduate degree in South Africa doesn't give you many options. But at the time, I was aware that you could go and teach in China, even though at the time I didn't really know what the requirements were. And I remember trying to convince this guy that, hey, when we get our qualification, why don't we go to Japan and go work there? And I remember one of his questions, like initially, I think there was a part of him that was like, yeah, let's do it. And then at some point, the apprehension crept in where he was like, oh, if we go there, how is that going to affect our spirituality? And which congregation are we going to be in? And how, it was just about spirituality. I guess he was very much, had his life built around organization. And me at the time, I just felt like, I had this thing in me that, no, man, are we going to stay in one country now and not travel and explore other places just because now we have to build our lives around this organization? And in my mind, I'm like, what's the sin? What's the sin in wanting to live in another country and work in another country? So that was a very, very, very big struggle for me. And ultimately, in the end, during our relationship, there was a point at which I decided to go to America. And even that decision, I don't regret. Looking back in hindsight, it was a very difficult decision for me to make at the time because we were engaged and we were trying to plan a life together and whatnot and whatnot. But then again, I looked at it. I'm like, what if our relationship doesn't work out? Or what if 20 years from now, I think about it and will I be happy that I had sacrificed that? Or um, will I be like content? Like, let's say I things work out in a way where I wasn't content with the life that I would have had with him. Would that make me look back to that moment of having had that opportunity to go overseas with regret, or will I still be like, no, but I still made the right decision? So for me, I also thought about what is the chance that I will have the opportunity to travel overseas again. um, and I figured that was a once in a lifetime opportunity. I'm like, we can always get married when the time comes. There's no rush. And yeah, I made it, went to America. Shame the relationship didn't work out. But to this day, honestly, going to America, I do not regret it. I do not regret it. I think it was one of the best decisions I could have made for myself. What happened in America, that's a story for another day. I'll make a video about that too. Yeah, because the relationship ended up not working out and so many things happened as a result. And that's pivotal things also. And like I said, I'm still going to make a video about that. So going to America, coming to China, and here in China, there's not that there's no religion, but people don't go to church like we go to church in South Africa. So there isn't much of a congregation or meeting or like fellowship that you can have here with fellow Jehovah's Witnesses. The first time when I came to China, it was a huge point of contention for me. Now, knowing what I know now, I'm so free. I'm at liberty. Like I'm happy. I'm happy. Like it's like I'm so calm. I'm so calm, guys. I'm so calm. Like I feel so good. I don't have to like rush for meeting, prepare for meeting, feel like I don't have no time, feel like there's things that I'm not doing that I'm supposed to. Guys, I feel so free. I feel so free right now. And number 6, the last one that I could think about is when my grandmother got sick. When my grandmother got sick, she went to the hospital, and because she was so sick and she had very little blood, they needed 2 people to put on the list of people they could call with regard to when they needed consent for anything. And they needed consent for blood transfusion for my grandma. So the people that were put on that list to be called to give that consent was my aunt and myself. My mom had requested at the time that because of her religion, she's not going to be able to give consent regarding those matters. But I was like, I want my grandmother here. I want her to live. And I was like, yes, put me on consent. And once they called me and asked if it was okay, if they could give my grandmother a blood transfusion because her blood levels was low. And guess what I said? I said, give it. I think the first time twice they gave her a blood transfusion. The one time my aunt was the one that okayed it, and the other time it was me that okayed it. And I don't regret that. Honestly, to God hears me. I don't regret it. I don't regret saying yes to them giving my grandmother a blood transfusion. Guys, I remember when my grandmother got sick, that was one of the darkest to this point. I mean, there are 2 events that I do remember that were like really, really dark periods in my life. Was when my grandmother got sick, and the second one when going through that whole judicial process and ending up being this fellowship. Nale, I'm still gonna make a video about. But my grandmother's disease was one of those many things that dribbled me, that had put me in a state where I questioned so many things, Again, my grandmother was also a person who was just anti this religion. And there was this thought that used to come up. So, okay, so she passes on. Is she going to be resurrected to live? It's like, what hope did I have for her in the future with regards to the hope that we preach to people? Because ultimately, she had multiple opportunities to accept this truth or study the Bible and what, and she refused. She refused. So, what was her hope? And I love this woman very much. I loved her so much. I wished for the life in me that she could have been with us forever and ever, or there could have been another life where she was going to be with us forever and ever. But I realize now that the time that we had with her was the only time that we were given. And for me, I was trying to prolong that time for as long as I could to have her here around us, because I knew when she was gone, she was going to be gone forever in this lifetime. In this lifetime. I don't know about another lifetime. Maybe another lifetime is coming. I don't know. But in this lifetime, to the day I get old, the day I die, I'm never going to see my grandmother ever again. Ever. Ever. So whatever it took at the time to keep her alive, I was going to do everything I needed to do. So giving my grandmother that blood transfusion was really something I don't regret. Even after that, I actually made the resolve that, you know what, seeing what that blood transfusion did for us, it prolonged my grandma's life a little bit for us. I actually resolved that in future, when there are initiatives where they collect and people donate blood, I'm going to go there and donate my blood, because who knows, I could help someone who potentially is in a similar situation that I found myself in. So yeah, for now, guys, those are the only things that I can think about, that as a Jehovah's Witness, some of these things are huge no-nos, but I did them, and looking back now, I honestly don't regret. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about these topics as they come up, but like I said, this for me is therapy. Like, I just need to get these things out, and these are my truth, my reality, and again, this is our story. So yeah, stay tuned for my next videos. Adios.